Butterfly in the sky. I can go twice as high. Take a look. It's in a book called Reading Rainbow. Hey, how's it going? Good to see all of you here. Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. Come on in, have a seat. Sit on down. The Jaybefaunt channel is available on all major podcast platforms, so go ahead and subscribe there. Also part of Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can find me there on Sundays and Thursdays. If you guys have not already, please make sure to subscribe to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com so that you are aware of whenever I go live, upload clips, or whenever I write articles, so you guys can go ahead there. Thank you so very much to everybody. If you guys have not already, go ahead and give the stream a like. That pushes me out into the algorithm so that I can get out there to more people, so that we can get these messages out there to more people like yourself who are brilliant and considering the education and news of the day. Look, we got some things to talk about. This is going to be, as you know, a stream with one of my new favorite books. Subjectively new. I mean, it's still not new, but look, we're talking Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price. We're continuing this reading. So I am so excited to get into this. And so, look, we're talking, continuing this book about your relationship should not leave you exhausted. I think something that a lot of times people don't really think about in regards to our relationships is how we constantly feel fatigue, both physically and mentally, because we have to go according to this notion that if we don't do this work, then we're constantly considered lazy. And it just really gripes at me, because the thing is like, no, a lot of what is pushed upon us, it could be, gender norms, or it could be societal norms that are placed upon us. And it's like, no, we don't have to abide by these, and we don't have to expend our energy so much to the point where it's exhausting to us. And this energy can also be within the household, right? We seen this in the last reading, especially when it talks about the family, about how it is best for us to say what we expect. Not only that, but if you have, somebody who you're cohabitating with, and sometimes it's best to let them take care of certain things, and even if they're not doing the best job of it, let them get better at it, right? Don't take on more than you can handle. And so these are some of the things that Dr. Devon Price has talked about so eloquently, and I really appreciate it. We're going to get into this next reading. We're starting on page 176. We are deep into chapter 6. We're finishing up. And so this subheading is called Setting Limits with Exhausting Friends. So this is going to be really good. I cannot wait to get into this. This is going to be a relatively short one, but this is when we're hitting right before we hit chapter 7. I am so excited to get into this with you. So now here we go on Setting Limits with Exhausting Friends. Years ago, I had a friend named Ethan. We met online on a forum for fans of the show Mad Men. I love the dark wit Ethan brought to his weekly reviews of the show's episodes. Our online conversations evolved into friendship, and after a few years later, Ethan moved to Chicago to take on a new job. Once he arrived in Chicago, Ethan's behavior changed. He hated his job and quickly became depressed. He had no other friends in town and became reliant on me for social contact and emotional support. He started telling me about the abuse he had endured as a child, often going into upsetting detail. He complained about his boss and said that his life looked hopeless. Eventually, he started talking about suicide. I didn't want Ethan to hurt himself. I felt responsible for his well-being. After all, he'd moved to Chicago knowing nobody else but me. If I didn't listen to him pouring his heart out, nobody would. So I did everything I could to help. I talked to him late into the night, reassuring him that his life had meaning and that he should keep going. I researched therapists in his area and created a list of providers I thought would be good fit for him. I searched for jobs he could apply to and sent them his way. I had a social worker friend call him up and work through solutions with him. One night, Ethan was caught in a deep, depressive spiral and kept texting me the same words over and over. I don't have any hope. I don't have any hope. I don't have any hope. Ethan, I'm so sorry, I wrote back. I don't know what to say. Did any of the therapists I recommend look like a good fit? All the therapist would do is tell me to look on the bright side or do yoga or something, he replied grimly. That's not going to help me. I kept encouraging him to get additional help. My support was clearly not enough, I told him. To be honest, Ethan replied, I haven't even opened up the list you sent me. In that moment, I realized I was trying harder to help Ethan than he was trying to help himself. I felt so used and underappreciated that I stopped talking to him right then and there. I was furious at Ethan, but even more disappointed in myself. The laziness lie has fundamentally warped our sense of boundaries, making many of us believe that the other people's problems are ours to solve. It tells us that if we care for someone, we have to suffer to help them. Unfortunately, we can't actually fix another person's problems. So we end up frustrated and run down, realizing we've been pouring energy into helping someone who can't or won't meet us halfway. Kathy Labroglia works with a lot of clients who struggle with this. It is a wonderful impulse to try to help people, she says, but it can also become a compulsion. Some people have to always run in and help without even asking if they're the person who should be doing it or if there's anything they can do to help. The laziness lie guilts us into taking on responsibilities that aren't ours to carry. Before we get wrapped up in yet another dramatic, ill-fated attempt to save someone, we ought to ask ourselves if another person's problems truly warrant our involvement, and if so, which kinds of involvement. From there, we can begin breaking out of the insecure, approval-seeking patterns that make us throw away hours of effort trying to help a person who isn't receptive to that help. Boy, oh boy. Because there's times where people will be like, I need help, and it's like it's this emotional roller coaster. And then you try to find answers for you to only realize you're just running around in circles to help somebody that it's like when the answers are presented to them, they don't accept the answers. Tip number 1, determine whether you should help and how much. When Kathy has a client who struggles with emotional overcommitment, she presents them with a series of questions that are designed to help them reflect on whether being involved is their responsibility. Here are those questions, followed by some alternative methods of addressing the problem that don't involve trying to fix the situation. Questions to ask before trying to save someone. Can they solve this on their own? Do they want help? Do they want my help? Am I the right person to provide help right now? Can I direct them to seek help from a professional or a close loved one? What are my motives for helping? What will helping cost me? These questions point to how many people reflexively attempt to help others in ways that are excessive, unrealistic, or even downright invasive. I see clients take up all these caregiving responsibilities for someone who's just a casual acquaintance, Kathy says. And suddenly they'll become a major support person in this near stranger's life. And I'm like, you barely even know this person. If I had stopped to ask myself these questions about Ethan, I would have realized that his depression and trauma history weren't issues I could solve, and involving myself so deeply in his life was wildly inappropriate. Ethan needed to seek out therapy himself when he was ready. I wasted hours making a list of therapists for him. That wasn't what he wanted. What he wanted from me was to be on call to support him 24/7. I could have spared myself and Ethan a lot of frustration if I refused to give in to that oversized expectation. It never occurred to me to draw those types of boundaries. At the same time, I was too addicted to being useful to other people. This kind of goes into that whole people pleaser type of mindset, where if you don't adapt to that people pleaser, then you're useless. Therefore, you don't have value. Now, think about capitalism, that you don't have value if you're not a people pleaser. Therefore, if you're not producing, and therefore you are less than. That's important to think about. Next tip, ask yourself why you are trying to help. A few months later, I listened to an episode of a Vice podcast, Dear Prudence, and heard something that knocked me right on my ass. One of the advice seekers in the episode was caught up in a very one sided friendship with their next door neighbor. This person provided their neighbor with free babysitting, groceries, and tons of emotional support. The neighbor had never so much even thanked them for their generosity. The advice seeker felt resentful, burned out, and taken advantage of. They wanted to know what Prudence, aka Danny M. Laverly, thought they ought to do. Danny's response began with a few practical tips on how to deflect the needy neighbor's requests. But then he went deeper and challenged the letter writer to ponder why they had felt so compelled to do thankless, unnecessary work for someone who was barely even their friend. Do you believe that if you take care of enough people, Danny mused, eventually someone will notice and finally decide to take care of you? Oh. Hmm. Danny's question might as well have been directed at me. The laziness lie has browbeaten me into hiding every vulnerability and need and left me obsessed with proving my worth to other people. I couldn't imagine asking for emotional support or care. Whenever I felt lonely or sad, I would try to boost my mood by helping somebody else. I had always secretly hoped that somebody would notice how hard I was working and approach me out of the blue saying, "Oh, you poor thing. You must already doing so much. Let me take care of you." I feel attacked in this right now, and I don't like what I'm saying. There's times when I want to hug, and I want forehead kisses too. I want a hug too, right? I tell people how well they're doing all because I want people to tell me how well I'm doing, man. Like I tell you guys how well you are, how smart you are, how brilliant you are, but it's not just because I mean it, because I really do mean it, but I also I want it reciprocated because I don't feel enough. Day in, day out, I look at other channels and I compare myself to the other channels that I see. Whether it's RBN, Savvy Sabs, Dating High Fong, Hardlings Media, right? I'll look at Katie Halper. I'll look at Bad Faith Podcast. I'll look at all these other channels and I'll see how big they are. I'll see how well they're doing, how much engagement they have. And I look at my little tiny channel and I'm like, not good enough. And so by telling others how amazing they are and how well they are, I kind of in some ways want people to do the same thing for me. This is big, man. Let's continue. Kathy Labrolia recommends that people ask themselves why they want to help people in need and what they expect to get out of helping. We all have a mix of healthy and unhealthy motives for doing things, she says, and that's okay. But you do want to get a sense of what the ratio is there. In other words, it's normal to have somewhat selfish motives for helping other people. None of us is perfectly altruistic, but if you find yourself compulsively helping other people in a desperate bid to win their approval, it is time to dial back your commitments. In particular, you should disengage from enmeshed, unfair relationships in which you don't feel appreciated and in which interactions leave you feeling used or taken advantage of. One of the things that I think that will also help with this is that if we actually have a system where everybody's material needs are met, like housing, healthcare, education, so on and so forth, so then we don't feel the need to constantly have to support other people. So then when we actually legitimately help, it is out of true altruistic means, right? It's not to just, in a sense, help ourselves so that we have this sense of wanting to receive help. That's why we have to get rid of this system and replace it with one that is more collectively focused. Next tip, stop rewarding inappropriate behavior. In his book, How to Deal with Emotionally Explosive People, the psychologist Albert J. Bernstein discusses how providing tons of mental health support to demanding friends can create a self-defeating feedback loop. If you're always there to help your friends feel better when they're down, you may accidentally train them to rely on you in order to feel better. Instead of using their own resources and problem-solving abilities to address their problems, they may begin to feel that they need you in order to fix things for them. The things that make people feel better are the quickest, Bernstein writes, usually makes them do worse. This is exactly what happened with Ethan and me. When Ethan was feeling suicidal and hopeless, he should have called a mental health crisis hotline, a therapist, or someone he was genuinely close with. But because I was always there, ready to listen for hours to his every complaint, he learned that I was the place to go with all his concerns. Without meaning to, I had trained him to avoid taking proactive steps to improve his life and instead develop reliance on me. Now, I'm gonna stop here and say that if we had a system where we had a nationalized healthcare system where mental health is freely available, then guess what? That also would take that necessity away from having to be a burden on people who are not trained for this type of support. This is why having things like a nationalized healthcare system would be a huge help for not just people who have mental health conditions, but for people who support or have family or friends with mental health issues, so that we don't have to expend ourselves over and over and over just to try to help this person, because we don't have the expertise, we don't have the training, the temperament, the knowledge to be able to do this. And we can use that, we can use the system of a nationalized healthcare system for the professionals to do it. It doesn't have to fall on us all the time. Makes you think, doesn't it? When faced with a distressed person, many of us feel tempted to do all we can to help. But often, our best attempts at helping can harm everyone involved. There's a huge distinction between providing help and being someone's sole crutch or unofficial therapist. By refusing to take on responsibilities that don't belong to us, we can empower an unhappy person to troubleshoot their own problems. They won't be happy that we've refused to rescue them, but they'll usually be much better off in the long run. In his book, Bernstein describes several reasonable, productive forms of help that compulsive helpers can use to replace the more intense enmeshments they're used to. So here's the table. And it says, on one side it says instead of, and then the other side says try this. So just, if you guys take a look at this table here, and go ahead and pause to see that. All right. So here's what it says. Instead of offering solutions to a person's problems, try this. Ask them how they will solve it. What do you plan to do? Instead of trying to make a person's bad feelings go away, try this. Let the person express their feelings without trying to change them. If somebody's crying, let them cry. Let them get it out. Don't try to stop it necessarily. Let them feel the full range of emotions. Let them rest their head on your shoulder. Hold them. Say, let it out. Go ahead. This also goes to a lot of people who say to men, oh, nah, be a man, right? Like one of my friends was telling me about how she is a doctor and she is in hospice care. And a lot of these older men will hold back tears when talking about things that may have happened in the past. And because of this patriarchal standard, a lot of men will think that showing our emotion is just bad or less than, when in reality, we also have the responsibility to give each other space in order to be fully human and to allow that person to, if they have those negative emotions, to express those negative emotions and to feel the full range. Instead of letting a person vent, cry, or rant for hours without resolution, try this. Listen supportively, but suggest a distraction or break when the person gets stuck fixating on the problem. Instead of listening while the person spirals into greater and greater anxiety, sadness, or rage, try this. Interrupt them when they start to repeat themselves or escalate. Let's focus on the present situation right now. Instead of trying to guess what the person wants, try this. Make them clarify expectations. What would you like for me to do? Instead of providing more support than you're comfortable with, try this. Identify other sources of supports. Who else can help with this? Instead of taking responsibility for the person's situation, try this. Deflect responsibility. I'm flattered that you care what I think, but you're an expert on what's best for you. If I had responded to Ethan's panic by taking steps on the right instead, taking steps on the right instead of those on the left, our friendship might not have taken the toxic, parasitic turn it did. I saw Ethan's suicidality as something I had to make go away. Every time I tried to take charge of the problems by telling him to call specific therapists or try to specific new jobs, I robbed him of even more agency. After I stopped providing Ethan with boundless emotional support, he had no choice but to reflect on how he was going to solve his own problems. Months after we stopped talking, a mutual friend told me that he had got a new job and that he liked and roommates who enjoyed spending time with him. By setting myself free of Ethan's unrealistic demands, I inadvertently liberated us both. It wasn't lazy or uncaring for me to detach from the relationship. We both needed me too. When we stopped struggling to meet each other's people's expectations, we can finally begin to see ourselves and our own values clearly. And when we begin to challenge the demands that individual people place on us, we become better able to cast off the massive, far reaching ones that society imposes on us as well. That's chapter 6. So, yeah, this is how we have to do with demanding friendships. Sometimes we'll have friends that are like, oh my God, I'm going through this. I really need to talk to you. And it gets repetitive over and over and over. And they just always seem to be going through a crisis. And they always seem to be ones who are trying to unload on you over and over and over. And it gets exhausting. Trust me, I know. Especially those of us who have the tendency to want to fix everything, right? And we tend to be the people who want to unload. Like that is a bit of is flattering that they feel like we're that comforting, but at the same time, we also have to remember that we also have our feelings and emotions as well, and sometimes that can depress us, and sometimes we mirror those emotions, and it's not good for us because we're taking on more than what we can actually bear. So I think that's important too. It's not lazy to say, I'm not equipped for this. And you either point them in the direction for somebody else who's more equipped, or sometimes you have to let them go. You know what? You know what lifeguards do when you're struggling so much when they're trying to save you? You know what they do? If you're struggling so much to the point where you're about to make them both drown, lifeguards push you off and let you go. And they're not going to come back until you stop struggling. Once you stop struggling, then they'll grab you and they'll take you to shore. But if you're struggling so much to the point where you're going to make them both drown, they let you go. That's what we have to do in life sometimes. When it comes to things like this. So yeah, it is one of the difficult parts, and it will make it a whole lot easier if we actually have a system that is made so that people can depend on professionals in order to do this, right? But chapter 7 is the next chapter we'll be getting into next time. And so this is shrugging off society's shoulds. So this is going to be another interesting chapter. I cannot wait to get into it. But yes, that was chapter 6 of Laziness Does Not Exist. So with that being said, did you like the stream? Go ahead and give it a like. And thank you so very much. Now, we are going to give a thanks to all the patrons on Patreon, because without you guys, I would not be able to do this work. So thank you so very much to all the patrons on Patreon and Coffee, as well as people who send me any type of funds via PayPal. Without you guys, I would not be able to do this work. Yes, channel still demonetized. So if you'd like to support the channel, you can support via Patreon or PayPal. And with that, I would just like to share with you guys also the tiers that I have, just in case you want to support. We're going to start at the bottom. We have Mega Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Jaybefaunters, Comrades, they're a very healthy bunch, Solidarity, and JB members. So thank you so very much to all who are supporting the channel as well. And a special thank you to all new patrons in the future. Ta-da! Thank you so very much. So I'm going to head on out. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I definitely enjoyed this reading. And it's very cathartic to read things like this for me, because a lot of times, you have people like me where, we care a lot. And the thing is that we care so much that we put ourselves in harm's way, even mentally, in order to save people. We got to save people. And the thing is like, we have to do things within reason. Like, we can't help, but the thing is, we can't do it individually. We have to look at ourselves as part of a collective, meaning coming together as a collective to do things. We can't just do it on our own. We can't save people on our own. We can't survive on our own. We have to come together, community. And that's one of the things that's most powerful. And I think that this is one of the ways in which we can do it. Part of this is also changing the system, which also will help us in the long run as a species as well. So, yeah. And let me know what you think about this. So I'm going to head on out. Thank you so very much for tuning in. Water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them. If you ain't got them, look, hey. Read. Because reading is fundamental, right? It opens the mind. It opens the heart. It opens perspectives. So do that. Go to the library or get a book. Try not to use Amazon if you can. But if you have no choice, then it is what it is. But do what you can. Do what you can for yourself. Do what you can for your community, because that's what it's all about. So, go ahead and give me a forehead kiss right here, and I will give you one too. Mwah! Forehead kisses to every single one of you. I love you so much for watching, and take care, and have a beautiful day, night, evening, wherever you are. Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.